Let's stay in Texas. Deshaun Watson, we had seen nor heard not a thing from him since he's the one, and so much has happened over the last 2 months, it's easy to forget. He's the one who let us all know that there was some sort of lawsuit that had been threatened against him or was going to be filed, hadn't been filed yet, whatever it was. That's when I first became aware of it. That's when many first became aware of it. I've followed Tony Busby on social media. Frankly, and Tony, this may come as a surprise to you, I hadn't even heard of you before this all came up. Now, big deal in Houston, but I'm not plugged into the Houston legal community or people who ran for mayor in Houston. I didn't know who Tony Busby was, but I knew who Deshaun Watson was, and he's the one who told me what was going down. We hadn't heard from him since then, and we didn't hear from him yesterday, but we saw Deshaun Watson putting in the work to get ready to play football at a time when we're not quite sure when, if, how, where he's going to play. He's getting ready to play. He's out there on the field. He's moving around. He's doing drills, Chris. And again, this is the first we've seen of him. This is proof of life from Deshaun Watson for the first time in 2 months.
Yeah, it is. It's, we are getting a look at him. Hey, just like, hey, here's this guy. Let's not forget about him. But I think more than anything, it's just showing, it's a way for Deshaun Watson and his camp to get it out. They're like, hey, I know all this stuff's going on in the world, but this guy's still focused on football. Hello, all 31 other teams that might want to trade for Deshaun Watson, when this all gets settled and everything like that. So I think that's the message you're trying to send here, right, Mike? The guy's still worried about his business. He's still worried about it being a great quarterback, and he's doing that work even though he's not with the Texans and has all this outside noise going on right now in his life.
It's funny, though, given recent developments, I know the first thing I thought of when I saw him out there doing his drills on the field, Juwan James. First thing I thought of, Juwan James.
Yeah, right.
Because here's how it would go down, and no one can claim that they don't know now.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson working out on his own away from the Texans. He could have shown up and participated in whatever the Texans have going on. Now, I don't know, maybe the league would be uncomfortable. Maybe the Texans would be uncomfortable, but he has every right to show up. And if you get injured while you're there, you're covered. And this would be, look, no one ever wants to see a guy get injured. But the Texans, for now, are staring at the possibility of cases don't get resolved. Watson shows up for training camp, and I strongly believe he's showing up for training camp under these circumstances because you either don't show up and get fined and don't get paid, or you show up, get put on paid leave, and get paid. Texans are looking at paying him over $10 million this year to not play if these cases aren't resolved and he's untradeable. Hey, if he would suffer an injury while working out on his own and be in the Juwan James category, that's the best case scenario for the Texans short of a trade, short of being able to get value for him and moving on, because your other alternative is paying him $10 million and he doesn't play. If he's not going to play, why pay him?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but that is the thing, right? Like, yeah, okay, injury, Texans might be off the hook paying them that way, but you also might be off the hook from being able to trade them at that moment too. So that's where that's affected by that. So I'm with you, Mike. I would think at some point, if nothing's done, Deshaun Watson does, go to training camp for all the reasons you stated. But either way, I think it's just, again, there's been a few positive things from his side of the camp here the last few weeks. I do think, his representative, Rusty Hardin, has done a good job of fighting back in the public a little bit to sway public opinion back to, even or maybe even favor Deshaun Watson here in some moments or whatever like that, to where we question everything again. So that's a positive. And like you said, we haven't seen him. So it's just great to see the guy and see him working out and going, okay, yeah, there he is. All right. It's just a check-in period. And, of course, he is one of the 5-6 best quarterbacks of football, one of the best players in the league. And as soon as this gets settled, you and I both know there's going to be teams calling the Houston Texans.
Rusty Hardin has made it clear that he's not going to let Deshaun Watson speak on these matters publicly. And we're all familiar with the Miranda warnings. Anything you say can and will be used against you. That happens when someone's placed under arrest. But the reality is, if you're the defendant in any proceeding, even in a civil proceeding, anything you say can and will be used against you potentially. So you don't let the guy talk. Now, I don't know, and it's possible Rusty Hardin didn't have the conversation about posting Instagram videos. It's possible Deshaun just did it under that notion of it's better to seek forgiveness than permission. But it's not like it jeopardizes him in any way.
I don't think so.
There's nothing about that video that you would look at and say, oh, God, Deshaun, why did you do that? It's a video of him working out, plain and simple. It doesn't affect his legal situation in any way. But you don't want the client to be making that decision on his or her own. And for all we know, Rusty Hardin saw it and said, I'm fine with it. But there's also a chance Deshaun just decided, this doesn't have anything to do with the cases. I'm just going to go ahead and put it on my Instagram page.
Yeah, no harm, no foul, but I would hope that anything he does right now, he runs by Rusty Hardin, right? I mean, I would hope, and then I would hope Hardin would go, yeah, okay, yeah, you're working out. Yeah, let's show everybody. You are in shape. You're still thinking about football. That is what you're here for. This is why, again, we're in the circumstance, and it is news. It's because he's a superstar football player. So he can't forget about that aspect of his life and not train and be ready and all that. Other thing I just thought, that I just noticed there too, because I feel like I've heard these rumors, but like they were filming him, but there was another guy there with a camera. Like, what are they? I feel like I heard rumors that there was a documentary going on with Deshaun Watson, maybe. But that's a professional camera. Like, I noticed those from here at NBC and stuff. That's where I just wondered: does he have somebody record him like that to look at technique, or is there something being done about his life right now?
Yeah, I don't know. You've got a camera and a camera.
Right.
It's like my dream from the other night. It's Inception. It's a camera of a guy with a camera of a guy with a camera of a guy with a camera. So that's a good point. And who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But that does look like a professional camera with some sort of a steadying mechanism.
Right.
I don't know, but that's something we'll just have to wait and find out. And as it relates to the advice that Rusty Hardin would give to Deshaun Watson, just so folks understand this, you don't want him talking to anyone, anytime, any place, publicly or privately. The message is never talk to anyone about anything remotely related to this situation. You feel compelled to talk to anybody about it, call me, call one of the people that work for me. The attorney-client privilege applies to them. Anybody else you talk to, you never know. You never know if you can trust them. You never know if that's going to show up somewhere. You never know who's going to get questioned by the other lawyer and forced to admit to whatever was said, whether it's a family member, a close friend, whatever.
Right.
You don't want to put anybody in a tough spot. Never say anything. And I haven't heard anything to suggest that Deshaun Watson has, and he's never struck me as the kind of guy who feels compelled to say a lot of things publicly or privately about sensitive matters. So this all continues to go forward. After last week's dust-up between the lawyers, it's gotten quiet again. No statements, no Instagram posts from Tony Busby, no press releases. They had their moment last week where they disagreed over who made the first move on settlement talks.
Right.
Rusty Hardin made it clear that he wants everything to be transparent. Tony Busby, according to Rusty Hardin, wants it all to be confidential. Busby never rebutted that specific point directly. And so we just continue to wait. And I still believe.
Yeah.
Chris, a point I made over the weekend,
right,
and it dawned on me. You're not at the point where you're fighting over confidentiality of a settlement agreement unless you have the terms of the settlement agreement
right,
already in place.
Yeah.
You don't get to that until it's pointless to talk about hypothetical, theoretical confidentiality when the clients have a six-figure impasse. I think they had and still may have the ball on the tee financially. It's just these other issues they got to work out. And from my own experience, once it gets to that point where financially it's worked out, life finds a way.
Yeah, they figure the other stuff out.
You figure the other stuff out.
Right.
Because everybody kind of exhales. They take the lawyer face off. It's not one of the cases you're now expending energy on thinking about what you're going to do, who you're going to question, how you're going to question. When you practice law, you carry that stuff around all the time. How am I going to handle this case? What am I going to do in this case? That one, once you get to the point where the numbers are right, it gets moved out of the category of the cases you think about. It's just a matter of time before it goes away. So I think that's one big point from last week that we haven't emphasized here.
Definitely.
I think they have a tentative deal financially. It's just a question of how they work out these other terms.
Is there any way, Mike, let me ask you this, just like, to expedite or, hasten this whole process a little bit for like Deshaun Watson and Rusty Harden, or is this one that they're kind of just, beholden to the circumstances and they got to hang in there and just kind of wait for details to get figured out?
Well, we always say the NFL is a deadline-driven business. Deadlines drive everything when you're talking about negotiation. And the reason why deadlines are important, if there is a move to be made, if there is any concession to be considered, you don't want to do it prematurely. You want to know when the time is right, when both sides understand the time has come to work out a deal, so they both move and they get it done. And there's different ways they could handle the confidentiality thing. They could have confidentiality as to the amounts that were paid.
Yeah, right.
But full transparency where the individuals involved can cooperate with the league, can cooperate with whoever, can talk about any of the details anytime they want.
Yeah.
So, but you don't want to start making your major concessions when there's still time left for the other side to say, man, that's not good enough, I want more. You want it all to come together and thread the needle at the deadline. And I think as a practical matter, the deadline is the start of training camp.
Yeah, right. I would think so. Right.
Now, I see when you're looking at I think the practical deadline is probably before that if you want to have a chance to trade him. This is one where it's hard to come up with what the deadline really
I would think
is.
it's like mid-July, like your second thought there, like something where it's like, hey, we'd like to get
I was thinking
this.
4th.
Yeah, or either way. That's a general time period. Start of July, okay. Now we got time to call around. Teams can figure out what they're doing, things like that. We could figure out maybe and get a feel for what the league might do for Deshaun Watson, all of those type of things. I hear you. I would think that's got to be the time, at least for Deshaun Watson and his camp, that they go, come on, like let's get this going. Let's get some finality to this situation.
And you have to wonder whether there's been any kind of conversation about what would be offered to the Texans if and when these cases go away.
Yeah, right.
Now, there's been some scuttlebutt, and I haven't been able to confirm this yet, that teams currently are trying to contact the Texans with an interest in trading for Deshaun Watson, even with this litigation baggage, and the Texans aren't engaging. And the reason they wouldn't engage is they're going to get a lot less if they trade him with the baggage than if they wait. But it would be prudent, I think, at some point for Nick Caserio, the GM of the Texans, to entertain conversations with interested teams in the event that the cases are resolved. I mean, they added Jeff Driscoll yesterday. They got 4 quarterbacks now: Tyrod Taylor, Jeff Driscoll, Ryan Finley, and Davis Mills. Clearly, Deshaun Watson is not in the Texans' plans for 2021. I'd want to have an alternative plan in place for the moment these cases are resolved, if they're resolved, so I know exactly where I'm going to trade this guy. I'd especially because you don't want it to happen, in a compressed time frame. Now, here's the other side of it too, Chris, that I just remembered. He's looking at a suspension. So it's not like you need to have him in day one of training camp to get him ready for week one. Whoever trades for him, if there's a trade to be had this year, they're going to go into it assuming 4, 6, 8 games based upon what happened with Ben Roethlisberger 11 years ago when he had 2 claims against him, not 22. You have to assume that he's going to be shut down for at least the first 4 games. So it's not as critical. It's not as critical to get a trade done before the start of training camp. So I don't know when you peg that deadline for getting a deal done.
It's a valid point. You're right. It takes away maybe the urgency there with that situation. I guess the only thing with Nick Caserio and that just pops to my mind is a little bit like something that already happened. If I'm you, I guess I'd want to get I'd want to get the ball rolling too, to like what you said. Get a conversation going about maybe some general framework of the trade or something. The other thing I would just be worried about if I'm Nick Caserio is more bad stuff comes out here. And now, okay, yeah, we're still going to trade him, but man, now he's definitely going to get suspended, and the team we're going to trade him to now, we have more bad tangible evidence or whatever out there in the world that doesn't look good on Deshaun Watson. They're going, man, now, we want to trade for him, but now this is out, and now we got to bring him here and deal with all the scrutiny of that. And I would think that could lessen the trade value too. So I would think you got to worry about that aspect a little bit, like what happened to him earlier this offseason. We're not going to talk to him anybody, not going to talk to him anybody. We're not going to take any deals, any deals. All of a sudden, everything bad happens. And all of a sudden, you're like, uh-oh, now I have nobody to trade him to. So I wonder if they worry about that at all, that any more bad news gets out there to affect this.
Look, you never know who else may come forward, and the window is open until the relevant statute of limitations expires, whenever that may be. Usually it's at least a year. In personal injury type cases, it's 2 years from the date of the incident. I tend to think that we already know
it all.
Who's gonna come out and say something, take the position where there's some liability, file a lawsuit, whatever the case may be. It's been 2 months now. Even though there's no binding requirement that everyone speak now or forever hold their peace within those first 2 months, I just think as a practical matter, we know what's out there. But it's a good point. Look, sometimes you got to strike while the iron's hot. You never know what kind of curveball is going to come your way to screw everything up.
Exactly.
And they've already been plunked in the head by a curveball on this one. And now they're just trying to figure out the right time to make their next move. And if they do play it the right way, there's still a chance. If these cases get resolved, you get a significant offer because you've got multiple teams that will bid against each other and drive up the price. I mean, Peter King has suggested Washington as a destination. I think it was Peter.
Yeah.
And if Philadelphia is in the mix too,
yep,
you got two teams in the same division.
Miami,
this
why
all started
wouldn't they
with
be
us
in it?
suggesting.
Yeah.
Well, remember I said at one point, why don't you get Miami and the Jets at the table and have two teams from the same division? You increasing your urgency to get him, because if you don't, your rival is. Now the Jets obviously won't be at the table because they have Zach Wilson, but if you could get Washington and Philly both into this,
I hear you.
You just sit back and wait for the price to go up. So there's still a chance they're going to get a huge return for Deshaun Watson if they can get these cases settled.
Yeah, agreed there. And I think you could get Miami involved in that mix. If they were interested then, I don't know why they wouldn't be now. And listen, I'll throw out another one that I just think, two teams that we like, Denver, of course. I wouldn't be shocked to hear them get back in the mix. And just as much as we've heard from David Tepper and Carolina about how badly, even though they made the trade for Sam Darnold, I would not be shocked to see them get involved in it. Deshaun Watson's too special. So I wouldn't be shocked to hear them get involved in that conversation once again, too.
One thing that we have never heard about the Deshaun Watson situation is where he'd like to play. Right. We heard it from Russell Wilson's agent, Mark Rogers, who said Russell Wilson wants to stay with the Seahawks, but if he were to be traded, he would accept the trade to the Bears, the Cowboys, the Saints, or the Raiders. We don't know where Watson wants to go. And I think at this point, that preference probably is taking a back seat, but it's going to get back in the front seat if we start getting these multiple teams at the table. I had pegged the Dolphins, the Eagles, the Panthers, Washington, and the Broncos. Those were I set loose odds a couple of weeks ago, so we're exactly on the same page about the teams that we think should be considered.
I think so. I think those are the teams that jump out to me. I think Washington, like you've mentioned, is the team that I would think is really interested. I mean, they're building something there, and they got weapons there and things where I think Deshaun Watson would look at it and be like, hell yeah, I'll go play there. Right? Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin. And now De'Ami Brown. I mean, they got something going with that defense and Deshaun Watson. Holy cow. So, yeah, I think those are the teams, though. I think those are the obvious ones and the ones that would be major players in that conversation.
And you never know who else may just decide, hey, this is my chance at Deshaun Watson. Yes, my quarterback situation is set for the current year, but when am I going to have a chance to get Deshaun Watson? Maybe a team that was thinking – next year is when it'll be available. Now, all of a sudden, he's available this year. If it gets to that, maybe you see some teams rip up whatever they were planning to do and try to make a move for Deshaun Watson. But if they can settle these cases, I think this is all going to go quickly.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.